So tonight, as we start in the talks, we are going to go in a sequence in studying the gospel, right? We are going to kind of, not review per se, but we're going to kind of touch base on what we learned. We just started on chapter 1, and today we're going to work on items 5 to 7. And those are the Spiritist doctrine and the alliance between science and religion that Spiritism as well brings for us to work on, for us to rely on our learning. So like we said, last talk we learned about the first revelation being the Old Testament that is personified in Moses. So we learned that Moses brought us the idea of a unique God, that God that he taught at the time was a God of justice, the eye for an eye, and we learned that the reason was what we, at that time, as eternal spirits, right? We, at that time, human beings, could really learn and could absorb, could understand and accept that kind of God of justice. Couldn't be too nice, otherwise at that time we wouldn't respect a God that wouldn't be firm, right? And then also he brought us the 10 commandments, right? Those were the divine laws. But also Moses brought us human laws. I say us, just to clarify, because it's us in previous lives. So I'm telling Christina that, so, you know, when you say us, of course, at that time. We had, you know, he had to use a language that we would understand. So if he just said, okay, you know, you shouldn't do A, B, or C, or you should, or in terms of hygiene and other just everyday things, we wouldn't have listened. So he put in the name of God things mixed with the divine laws. So we have the teachings from Moses that are the divine laws, the 10 commandments, but also others that we know that was mixed in the middle of the teachings. Right? Everybody remembers that. Then Jesus came as a second revelation, so it's personified in Christ, with Jesus Christ, the New Testament. And when he came, he summarized in the 10 commandments by the law of love. So, love your neighbor as yourself. We, human beings at the time, we had, you know, thousands of years later, we had better understanding. Not quite, you know, love is still, we're still learning. But at least he could already say, in a way that we could understand better, about a God that is not that God of justice anymore, that eye for an eye. God is the same, obviously, but he starts bringing this other, more merciful side of God that we have had already vowed to accept that responsibility. He explained to us not only what Moses had said, but he brings another concept. He brings the concept of this, his kingdom is not from this world. Meaning, he starts touching a little bit on the spirituality, right? That he was that king, but not the king that were expected to come to save the world from the misery and being all powerful, this or that, because that was a different situation. He was bringing the law of love for us to learn and to work on here to deserve and earn this kingdom in a different world. Okay? And he promised the consoler. At the time, he said that I will go, but you're going to get more sometime in the future. some more information, some more teachings for us. We needed to get ready, we needed to evolve. Science needed to move forward. We need to have the right words even to understand what was about to come with the event of the spirits coming and bringing to us more information on what Jesus had said. So then, we get now, and I put Spiritism, but let's understand that it's not personified in anybody. It is the idea of being given by the spirits. Spiritism, obviously, that we study here, that we follow, brought all these teachings. But also, the spirits, when they bring the lessons throughout other spirits throughout the world, they are bringing these revelations to us of the spirituality. Okay? So it's not just per se Spiritism, but the news given by the spirits, but the spirit of the truth. Spirits that will bring the real revelations. As we know, spirits are us. We are spirits. We are just incarnated. So the same way that we can be very knowledgeable about something, we can be just, we can think we're knowledgeable, right? Or we can know to a certain extent. The same with the spirits. Obviously, that the more evolved, the more knowledgeable, getting to be pure spirits, like the so-called angels, right? They will have more knowledge. And therefore, those are the ones that will be bringing really more revelations to us in the terms of the planet, the things that are more, they're deeper, they're more important for us to know. Okay? All right. So this collective work brings us the understanding of our destiny in the spirituality. So now, not only we had Jesus touching some bases on spirituality, talk about the kingdom is not from this world, but now we have the opportunity of learning more and more about the spirituality. And through Spiritism, we have Christ's message. That's what we study, right? We study Jesus' teachings. We are Christians in a way that will clarify the messages that were by him were taught in an allegorical way. So, under the light of believing in several lives, the life continues in reincarnation, and we'll talk more about it. We look at his, the gospel is his teachings under this light explained in a way that we are all understanding what it's been talking about. Okay? Good? Everybody good? Okay. Then we go. So what's Spiritism? We say it's a new science. Why do we say science? Because it came to us in a systematic way. It was brought by Kardec in a scientific study, in a way that even though, I'm not saying science like biology, astrology, it's not a material science, it's not a science, that kind of science. But because he systematically asked the questions to the spirits, he compiled the information that coincide the answers from several places, from several mediums, and got that as the answers, and put together the Spirit's book and the Gospel according to Spiritism and the other books. We call it a science of observation, because that's how he got the information for us. And the mission of Spiritism is to reveal, first of all, the existence of the spiritual world in a very detailed way. It's not just kind of touching the subject, but we talk about the nature of the spirituality. Who are we? where we came from, where we are going, what are parts of our bodies when we are incarnated, when we're discarnated, and how we live on the spirituality. That we continue our lives in a way that is not only playing the flute or being in a place of limbo or whatever, but it is as a workplace, a studying place, a place like here. Actually, here is a place like there, right? We learn in Spiritism that the origin, our origin, is the spiritual world. That we are spirits, that we were created as spirits, and we, from there, we are going to come to earth, reincarnate several times, learning different experiences, and going back to the spirituality. So the spiritual world is the model, is what it is. Here is like a copy of the spirituality that we learn from there to come here. If we can hold, I will get at the end, get all the questions and answers. Okay, is that okay? Okay, very good. And more than that, in Spiritism, what's fascinating is that we, not only there is the spiritual world and the material world, but there is a relationship between the two. And when we read the Medium's book, I love the beginning of it because it gives us that thread of thought. It says, well, if I love you, we are so close, and one of us die, how come I'm not going to want to talk to you? I don't want to be close to you. Is it over? No, we continue loving, we continue, or hating, right? We have a relationship that's not going to end because we are in different dimensions. But the opposite, we can, and some people are more sensitive about it. We have what we call the mediums, and they will be able to see or to hear, or through them for the spirits can communicate. But also, anybody, all of us, have that kind of a relationship with the spirituality by being influenced by them, and we influence them. So, if I'm here, and somebody that I love discarnates, right, dies, the body dies, and I desperately keeps thinking, and I want you back, you have to be back, well, I am bothering that spirit on the other side, because that spirit cannot be peaceful. He or she loves me, and I want him back, and he or she cannot be back. So imagine how we feel incarnated, right? It would be the same way. Okay, I moved to a different city, and Fernandina can't get over it. She gets really desperate, and she keeps calling me, Tania, come back, come back, come back. And I can't come back, or I don't want to come back. And then, I feel bad for her. I cannot do anything. Do you see, just making an analogy, it's no different. The situation, then you imagine if you're in trouble and you think that the spirit, because it's on the other side, will be able to help you. And that spirit is in need worse than you are sometimes, right? And then a poor spirit, right, on the other side will be really suffering. So we cause ourselves griefs and problems this way. We influence each other, but we can also influence in a very good way. I'm missing you, but I really, I love you, I want to think of you, that you are all right, that the person is happy where he or she is. I send even flowers in my thought, whatever the person likes. Well, the spirit on the other side will feel like, oh, then she missed me, she thinks of me, that's great. I also miss her, but it's a good feeling instead of that affliction, that situation. So the thought, the feeling that we exchange is real in both worlds. So it's not only from them to us, but the opposite is also true. The same way that among ourselves incarnated, or among themselves discarnated, right? We have that relationship. So Spiritism will bring stories will bring situations, and that will explain to us how this works, how we have these relationships. Okay? And now, even though it's a big one, we're going to talk a lot about all this. So don't worry about the amount of words. But it says, the spiritual world is presented not as a supernatural element, but as one of the living and active forces of nature, the source of a vast number of phenomena that even today we don't understand, and so relegate to the realm of fantasy or miracles. So let's talk about this. First of all, it's interesting how some people associate Spiritism with the supernatural, right? It's exactly the opposite, but that's what people think. Because the moment that I don't understand and I think of the spirituality as something really out of this world and something far away from my reality, obviously, for me, everything related to the spirituality seems to be not natural, supernatural, or unnatural, right? And it's exactly the opposite. For us, talk about spirits is completely natural. Because we are spirits. We feel, we know that we are spirits that right now are incarnated. And so let's analyze all this in several slides. First of all, what is supernatural? Supernatural, that's the dictionary. Unable to be explained by science or the laws of nature, of, relating to, or seeming to come from magic, a god, etc. In other words, something that cannot be something natural, something that could be just from the divine laws or from any laws, the known laws that are familiar to us. And therefore, has to be magic, or has to be that extra power of a god or an entity of some sort, right? That's what supernatural means. So, then the moment that something can be reproduced, a phenomenon can be reproduced, either spontaneously or by an act of will, or force, right? I want to reproduce something, an experiment. It's implied that it's subject to a law, and therefore, be this law known or unknown, the event cannot be miraculous. That's in the Genesis according to Spiritism. So, for example, the lightning. Well, in the past, people thought that came from the gods, right? Even in the plural. There were different gods for things that we could not explain. The same way that gravity, the law of gravity, has always been there. Nobody invented it, right? They just discovered that it existed. Okay, so certain things, the electricity and so on and so forth, it's not because we don't know or we don't believe. I can say, I don't believe in gravity, so what? Gravity is there. Who cares if I believe or not, right? And some people are there. Some people who have this, ideas like that I don't like that idea, and that's fine. But it does not take away from the existence of something. So that said, when we can reproduce some, the lightning, of course we cannot reproduce the lightning, but the effect of the lightning, once we discovered how that happened, we can make it happen in a smaller scale, obviously, but it's possible. It is possible also to have a medium, to be in different mediumship meetings, and see and observe the relationship that there is between the visible and the invisible world by the communication of spirits. And the observation of that phenomenon over and over again, bringing information that were not from this world, were not from that group of people, including not having the knowledge to say about certain subjects, that person per se, but was bringing from somebody else, they are not reproduced the same way as a material experience. Because, we're dealing with people, with the spirits, they have free will. I cannot say 100 times, let's do this experiment. The spirit will say, hello, right? I mean, I don't have that time or whatever, or I don't want to do it. It's different than having an experiment with an apple or with, things that they don't have free will, right?
What is written there?
I don't remember. Yeah, sorry, I thought we would be able to. Let's see here. Oh, I can't see from here.
Sorry.
Oh well, we'll look afterwards. Yeah, it's a little joke. It's cute actually, but anyway. All right. So, why we are talking about this in terms of the spirit and the matter? In the question 27 of the Spirit's book, Kardec asks the spirits, there are then two general elements of the universe, matter and spirit? And the answer is yes. Above them is God, the creator of all things. These three, God, spirit, and matter, are the essence of all that exists. Universal Trinity. Well, what it means is that we have put so much emphasis on the material world, right? If we think of how much we developed intellectually these last years, 100 years, how much we've learned about science, the two are as important. Those are the two elements. We cannot talk about one without the other. And that's what we tend to do, because we are in the material life, right? We don't remember from the spirituality. So we focus a lot on the material life, which is fine, but that's only one of the wings. The other wing is the spirit. We cannot really evolve without putting attention in both of them. And we're still talking about that slide before. So, considering that God does not do anything for fancy. Remember, we were talking about miracles, about supernatural, talking about matter and the spirit. And then, look, Allan Kardec, obviously bringing from the spirit, says, consider that God does not do anything for fancy, meaning for show, right? He does not need to impress us. We are impressed enough. That's okay. Miracles are not necessary for the glory of God. Nothing in the universe ever goes against the laws of nature. God does not work miracles because, as His laws are perfect, He has no reason to derogate or suspend them. If facts are found that we cannot understand, it is just because we are in want of the knowledge necessary to understand them. But we are so proud, right? We're still very proud. We think that if something cannot be explainable right now, it's probably because there's no explanation. Because we don't know. It's not that we don't know, it's our lack of knowledge. Or that we are still not in that point in time that we are supposed to be learning that. Then we explain by giving extra powers to somebody else. Well, I'm not taking away how powerful God is. We know that He is all powerful, right? It's not it. But looking at His creation, like the Spirit said, His laws are perfect. Why am I going to undo something that is perfect, that He did, He created? He's already... the glory of God is there. So it is instead, would be, we do not believe that miracles exist. In Spiritism, we don't believe in miracles. We believe that everything has an explanation. And if we do not have an explanation yet, it's because it's still yet to come through science, through the combination, the alliance of the two, of what we're learning in, in the religion and the science. So it's not something that it goes beyond that. Okay? For example, when we learned in the gospel about the so-called miracle that the resurrection of Lazarus, what we learn is that Lazarus had or could have had the lethargy, which is an illness that a person looks dead instead of being dead. We do not believe that somebody, once you're dead, you can come back to life, because that would be supernatural. That would be against the divine laws, right? So, look at this. I thought, even though those texts are kind of big, but I thought those are very interesting for us to read. Because look at the Genesis, it says, if a really dead man, now we're talking, the guy is dead, okay? Be recalled to life by divine intervention, this would be a veritable miracle if it was really dead. Because it's a fact contrary to the laws of nature. But if the man had only the appearance of death, if he has still in him the remains of latent vitality and science or magnetic action succeeds in reanimating him, still then, to enlighten people, a natural phenomenon is presented. That's the answer. And for some people, they would still say it's a miracle. But a miracle would be only the case if the person was really dead. But for the person who is not dead but has some appearance of death, and we know that nowadays we know of this issue, this disease. In the times of Jesus, of course, there was not something that was well known. So this was one example of a situation that it looked like a miracle, but actually he was able to bring back somebody who was near death, right? The near-death experience. So the miracles of the Gospels, we still talk about supernatural versus natural. We believe that the miracles narrated by the Gospels were either natural phenomena, like the one we just mentioned, or manifestation of spirits. If we remember at the Transfiguration in the Bible, that for Jesus, he is at the mountain, and then Moses and Elijah, they come and talk to him to give him advice. Well, that is an example of a manifestation of spirits. So in Spiritism, we don't believe that was, the body that was, Moses had died how many thousands of years before, but that was his spirit there, really materialized, or even just showing to him, to Jesus, and talking to him. The same way that we believe that when Jesus died in the cross, and then he appeared to the disciples, that was his spirit that appeared, not he was resurrected and his body came back to life. We believe that his spirit showed himself to the apostles. So those are kind of manifestation of spirits. The same way that in a mediumnic session, we have a manifestation of spirits through psychography, through psychophony, or the talking through the medium. So the passes, or here it's it's the person incarnated, and this is the spirit helping out, right? And here we have this directly the spirit giving the passes to the person who is either sleeping or sick, can't tell. But it says the cure is performed by the substitution of an unhealthy molecule for a healthy one. The faculty to cure by the fluidic influx is very common and can develop itself by exercise. Again, talking about not being supernatural. What we believe, there is an explanation when we have the healing, situation where a medium or a person, and we know of many healers that are not spiritists, but they have that, because we all have in ourselves, incarnated, the magnetism. We have that together with the will of helping, the thought that I put in. If I'm going to give you a pass and you are sick and I want to help you, I'm sending that, I'm directing my will towards you to be healed. Combined with the spirituality helping us, we are able to help the person, because we're also donating our, it's called ectoplasm, right? It is the energy that we incarnated have, that the spirituality can manipulate and actually work on matter. Obviously, we're touching a lot of different subjects. Today is just a teaser for you guys to want to know more and study more. There's no pretension here that you know what all the things are. But if not, there is an explanation how these cures happen in Spiritism. Obviously, studying about mediumship, about the magnetism, about fluids, there are many different topics to explain that. But there is an explanation, logical explanation in Spiritism about how these cures happen. Okay. So, Christ, he mentioned these relationships. So we said it was not supernatural, those are forces of nature, right? The spirits and the matter. And we said also that he, in several occasions in the Bible, they are completely overlooked in general. But if we try to explain what it means, for example, when he talked about that he expelled the demons. Well, the demons are spirits, okay? That's all. The word afterwards got a different connotation, but the word demons are just spirits. Well, what are these spirits? Those are spirits that were obsessors. Those are spirits that were not doing anything positive, let's put it this way, to be politically correct, to the person involved. So, Jesus, with his moral authority, just told them to move away. It's not your place, it's a go away. They expel, meaning the way. In Spiritism, what do? We have the possibility, through mediumship, to talk to these spirits that are in this situation. Suffering spirits, spirits that don't understand that they are on the other side of life. Spirits that had problems with us, any one of us, in the sense of hating us, we did something bad. Or sometimes several reincarnations, the spirit gets just attached to us. And they don't want us to be happy, okay? Until they learn and they do better. This is a temporary situation. It can take a few years, but most of the times, after a while, they will, not most of the times, all the times, they will learn and they will want to also do well and be better people. So then, but when we talk about Jesus, then we say about expelling the demons, we're talking about spirits. We're talking about spirits that were there, that we can, up to these days, still deal with it, but he mentioned it. Also, when Jesus talked to the thieves on the cross and said that they were going to be together in paradise. Well, if they're going to be together, because there is another life afterwards, right? It's okay, talk about paradise. Maybe they would take a little longer for them to be in paradise, in the good place, but those are details. He did mention that they would be in the other side. Here's the dialogue between Jesus and Nicodemus, which is my father's middle name, by the way, Nicodemus. Yeah. He says, very truly I tell you, no one can see the kingdom of God unless they are born again. And Nicodemus will ask, but how, an old man will go back in the womb of the mother? And he says, no. And he says, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they are born of water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to spirit. Well, he's talking about reincarnation. He's talking about, if we need to reincarnate in order to learn, to evolve, to grow spiritually, to become better people, right? And obviously, we cannot go back to the womb, obviously. So how does that happen? In a new body. In a new body that we're going to have, obviously it will be maybe another mother, maybe, so through reincarnation, but in the sense that we learn in Spiritism, not resurrection, which is different. Resurrection is to be born with the same body, the body that died, be born again. Reincarnation is to be born in a new body, different situations, different experiences that we are able to undergo and learn. And once we learn, we are able to move forward. So, these are topics that Christ mentioned. And therefore, with the Spiritism, we are going to be always touching this subject in all the questions that we study. I'm just looking to see, okay, not yet. Okay, before I ask questions, before I go to the other topic. So basically, what we learned is that Christ was obviously is our role model of perfection. We know that we can do, he said, you can do what I did and more. But obviously not automatically, we needed to work on that, our inner transformation, and being able to do the things that he did, which is through mediumship, the cure, the things that he did, because being such an evolved spirit, he was already the medium of God. We have a lot of intermediaries, right? Jesus has a different situation in the evolution at this point. So, Spiritism will continue what he came and told us, and we see Jesus as the governor, the co-creator of Earth, the one that is responsible for the evolution of Earth, right? So that's what we are learning, that we are in the process of this transformation of the planet, going from a planet of expiations and trials all the way to a planet of regeneration. Still, in evolution, we still have steps to go, but it's already a step forward. But for us to be able to be there, to inherit the earth in this new phase, obviously we have work to do. And our work to do is in ourselves, our transformation, our inner transformation to be able to continue in this path. Before I continue to the alliance between science and religion, now I want to open for a few questions or comments or something before I continue. Anything? No. You were going to say something, Belinda.
No.
No? No? Okay. We're all good? Yeah, it's a lot of concepts. So, a lot of things we've talked about, but a lot of concepts to study. Okay, so for us to, when we talked about matter and the spirit, when we talked about the evolution, we also have to think of the religion and the science working together, because we're talking about both worlds, right? Talk about the spirit and the matter. But if they are not together, they're not lined up, then we're going to have a deficit there of knowledge, or even the acceptance of what is really true or not true. We are used to having those two very separate. Religion is one thing, science is something else. And the proposal with the Spiritism is that we want to more and more see those together. We believe that they need to be lined up. Why? So, they are, we believe, the two levers of human intelligence. So, when we talk about the two wings, the intellect and the moral side we're talking about, you know, the matter, the things that we learn for this, you know, in this planet and the universe, and we're talking about religion in the sense of our moral side. Okay, one reviews the laws of the material world and the other the laws of the spiritual world. Okay? Well, since these laws stem from the same first cause, which is God, so God is the creator. God created it all. Remember the, you know, matter and the spirit. Well, so they cannot contradict each other. Why would God create two things that they don't go together? They will be separate. They will be reasons to have fights and killing and conflicts. That's not the God we believe, right? So, and if one conflicts with the other, one is right, the other is wrong. If God created both, how do I pick? So, if I am a scientist, do I need just to stay with science and not believe in faith-related stuff? Or, so, what do I do? See, it doesn't make any sense. Because everything is connected. Everything is related. So, what we want to see is those working together. So, the explanation of this incompatibility is because each side picks a side, right? So, if I don't have an explanation in science, I say, oh, it's God's will, it's supernatural, I have no idea. So I will just leave it for something that doesn't, no explanation. And of course some people say, yeah, but faith is faith. I cannot prove, I cannot, you know, you cannot put those two together. But the closer they get, the more I am able to reason. Obviously, if I say that something like, if I believe that the snake talked to, what was it, with Eve?
Eve, yeah.
Eve, okay. I'm giving a power to something that is not something scientific at all. I will completely not accept another explanation. If I do believe that the world was made in 7 days, 24 hours, because that's power, right? That's superpowers, right? Instead of taking that as a symbolic way of saying it, maybe it was like 7 eras, or not even 7, but that represents something that could be a very interesting thesis in theology, but not necessarily has to be literally the answer. but I might believe that way. So if the more I believe, really believe in things that they're not possible scientifically speaking, the farther I am from the science, obviously, right? But what we want is searching situations where we can bring things together. Obviously, this conflict of ideas, each one taking a different side and saying I'm right, you're wrong, cause what? Disbelief. It was written unbelief, but I thought it was disbelief. I don't know if both are correct. And intolerance. We, obviously, I start taking sides on the story. But as we evolve, again, the evolution in terms of the intellect, in terms of the moral, there are things that we learn in Spiritism that we need to evolve more to be able to understand better. We even learn in Spiritism that there are certain things that in the spiritual side, even colors, that they don't exist here. How do you describe a different color? You don't, can't. There are no way to say that. Or there are different means of transportation. So they try to say as close as we can to understand what it means. The Airbus, what is it called? That, you know, they kind of slide, but they're not kind of, it's not air, but it's above the ground, but this, but that. So we kind of have an idea what they're talking about, but we don't know exactly. Does that mean it does not exist? We just don't have the words, right? Or the equivalent. And so, the more we learn, the more things are invented, are created, are brought to the material side of life, the closer we get to the other side. So, the idea is that we get to a point where science must see beyond matter and acknowledge a spiritual perspective. And we'll have a bunch of examples that this is happening already. And religion must stop ignoring the fundamental laws of matter. So if I say in certain things that are completely against the divine laws, well, I'm completely ignoring the laws of matter. There are laws. There's science. You know, there are things that I have really to believe that in supernatural to say it. And the more we think about it, because that's the other situation that we notice, and a lot of people that they just repeat because it has been said that way forever, but things that not necessarily make sense to him or herself directly, right? I'm not talking about me or you. It's so sometimes you question somebody, but have you thought, how can that be, so on and so forth? And then the danger is that that person will tell us that we are challenging the powers of God. So that it is what it is. But in Spiritism we learn the faith with the reason. We need to look at something and it has to make sense, at least to our intelligence, to our knowledge. And if something looks completely out of place, let's wonder at least. Let's question at least. So that's the thing about Spiritism. It's the faith with reason, right? Okay, so see where we need to go? One going towards the other to find a common place. So as a result, once we achieve that, religion will no longer be discredited by science. And I tell you, more and more science is, and again, we're not talking about religion, a religion, like an institution, not necessarily has to have a name to it. I'm not talking about Spiritism. I'm talking about the beliefs in the spirituality. That's what we're talking about. Because it's not, a lot of people get a little disillusioned, is that it? Yeah, disillusioned, about certain institutions because they had a bad experience, because there are 10 things that they talk about, 9 they don't like, or things like that. But it's not it. It is that spirituality in ourselves, that believe in God, or some people don't even call God, but they believe in something superior. Obviously, we Spiritists believe in God. But I'm saying, if somebody is at that level, is connected to something superior, we already talk about religion. It does not need to have a label behind it. Because it is to accept that there is something beyond ourselves, above ourselves, the Creator, or, so then we, together with the reason, the religion, looking in accepting certain concepts that make sense, also scientifically speaking, that is the union that we want to see, to give more power even to religion, if we can base it in some things that are scientifically explainable. Okay? Okay, I know that my voice, it makes you sleepy, but anyway, wake up, right? I have a friend that says, my voice is deep. Okay, so again, the Genesis is wonderful about this material, talk about science and religion, and talking about this relationship between the two. So just as science, properly speaking, has for object the study of the laws of material principles, the special object of Spiritism is the knowledge of the laws of spiritual principles. We talked about it. So, the spiritual principles, right? Remember the force of nature that we talked before? Not supernatural, but part, will act incessantly and reciprocally upon the material principles. The result of it is that knowledge of one cannot be complete without the knowledge of the other. Obviously, the more we understand that concept, that one complements the other, we are not just our bodies, right? What we believe. We are incarnated, so we have this material body, that our spirit, right? We have our spirit, and the perispirit, which is this envelope that envelopes the spirit, so to speak. There is semi-material that register all the actions and the thoughts that we have, and this perispirit helps us going both ways. Sensations from the spirit to get to our body and vice versa. Okay, we die, the body dies, but the perispirit and spirits, they survive. They never die, right? That's what we believe. So, that said, again, what do? We have this perispirit being able, even during our sleep, going to the spirituality, visiting people there, right, that are in the spiritual side, or among ourselves. So we have that freedom. At the same time, that's where we have the register our thoughts and our deeds. Okay, we are constantly having the spirituality acting, and we act upon that body as well. Right? So how do we close the gap between these two realms of knowledge, the science and the religion? Okay, the missing link is contained in the knowledge of the laws that govern the spiritual realm. Like we said before, the moment that we realize that we are not only matter, and that we have the spirit and the spirituality, and all related to that in the interaction, we will learn those laws that govern the spiritual side. Those laws are as, or even more regulated, more constant than that we have here. So I can study, for example, in the matter, I can study the movement of the stars, let's say, that's the material side, right? There is a rule, there is a law, there is a way that things move. Well, when we talk about the spirituality, there will be also laws. How this relationship happens. What happens to our perispirit? What happens when we discarnate? What happens there? The spirits will, the spirituality, the superior spirits will help us. There are certain ways, even for us to get, when we die, our body dies, there is the separation of that perispirit from the body. What happens there? So there are laws. There are laws of cause and effect that will affect not only the matter, but also the spirit. So the moment that we start analyzing that, and the interaction with the world of matter, or the material world, then we start seeing things in a different light. So then I think of faith not only as something that God, that is somewhere, that is thinking of me or helping me, but I think of me as part of the creation, and how I interact. I have a role in the universe. How really I can look at that God in relationship to me, not something completely away from me. And therefore, I start analyzing this relationship and the spirituality, putting the reason behind it. Again, the reason, thinking in an intellectual level, and then there is also, obviously gets to a point that the beliefs are there, but I try to get what makes sense in the whole system, and not just have one piece that, but then this I can't put in this system. I have to, relegate it to something that is not explainable. When everything has a system and we are able to give a body of principles to what we are studying, then we become the faith will speak to reason, and reason will find that nothing logical in faith. And when that happens, materialism will be gone, because then faith and reason will be close together. We're not going to read all this, don't worry about it. These are some examples. I got some extracts, pieces of from the internet and from that will, and there are tons there, okay? When we talk about science and religion and we look at the world these days, what is happening? And I'm not talking about Spiritism only, okay? Many different religions are connected to different scientific experiments or trying to prove something about spirituality, the sciences are. So can prayer heal? I found tons of researches on that, where, and I just put in bold here, that they see more and more those studies being happening. Federal subsidy, funding from Congress. All of these studies, all the reports are remarkably consistent, suggest the potential measurable health benefits associated with prayer or spiritual interventions. So you start reading, and they will have real research results on the prayer, meditation, things that are not related, it's not science, right? It is definitely spirituality acting on those patients. And this is what we're talking about. When they start working together, because we are not only one piece. So if I treat my body, and we Spiritists believe that the moment my body is sick is because it started from my spirit. My spirit morally caused the damage to my body. So that is a consequence, that's an effect. The cause is not there. So I start treating from the source, that's why it helps. Obviously, nobody's saying that you shouldn't take medication. We have the matter. Nobody here says don't take medication. It's a combination. We treat the matter and we treat the spirit. And the psychological, right? They're all parts of us. We don't take one piece only. It's the same thing as when we go and we look at one part of one organ. Well, can sometimes works, you just treat that, but sometimes that already affected other parts. And then you have to look at it as a whole, right? Look at another example. This is a book, but it is regarding, I like this, look. Practice in community centers, so that's spiritual and mental health. Here we're talking about clinics, psychiatric clinics that we know that in Brazil there are several already, and it's spreading. It's the tendencies that this is going to spread. How is it spreading already? By knowledge. So it's getting from books to other parts of the world. See, practice in community centers and psychiatric hospitals throughout Brazil. Spiritist therapies are gaining increasing recognition internationally for their ability to complement conventional medicine. So, there will be other kinds in other places, other countries, of different treatments this way. But this week, I happen to know about this clinic, so we picked as an example, where in a psychiatric clinic, we don't have only the treatment of the medication and therapy, but also the spiritual treatment, where there is disobsession sessions, there is knowledge that we are spirits. We bring a spiritual baggage. We're not only this life, we bring more to the plate than just looking at my mother and my father and what I did and, in my childhood, to the extent that if you had the opportunity of reading that book, it's not a Spiritist, but it's from Dr. Wise. Brian Wise.
It's great.
Yeah, it's a wonderful book. Many masters, many lives.